Video opens on a series of slow, cinematic shots. A lone soldier standing on a vast, cracked wall. A colossal, shadowed figure looming over a burning city. A close-up on a character's face, etched with despair and defiance. The music is a low, ominous drone. Host. There is a cage we built for ourselves. It is not made of iron or stone. It is forged from a single, intoxicating material. The certainty that we are right. This is the cage of righteousness. You know the feeling. The heat that rises in your chest during a disagreement. The narrowing of your vision until the only thing that matters is victory. Every word they speak is not information, but an attack. Every defense you mount is not a point, but a shield for your very identity. In that moment, you are not a person having a conversation. You are a fortress under siege. But what if I told you the strongest fortresses are also the most isolating prisons? And what if I told you the key to unlocking this cage, to not only winning the conflict but transcending it, is not a battering ram, but a simple question? Stay with me, and I will show you the strategic genius of Armin Arlert, and how his method for de-escalation can give you power in the moments you feel most powerless. This is the art of breaking the stalemate. Title: The Power of a Simple Question. Armin's strategy for de-escalation. The scene transitions to more intimate, claustrophobic shots. Two people arguing in a small room, their faces distorted by anger. A split screen showing two opposing generals hunched over a map, their expressions identical in their grim determination. The host's voice is calm, direct, and speaks to the viewer. You've been there. The argument started an hour ago. Maybe it was with a partner, a parent, a colleague. It began with something trivial, a misunderstanding, a forgotten task, a difference of opinion. But it is no longer about that. Now, it's about the tone you used. It's about that thing you said 3 years ago. It's about your fundamental character, your perceived lack of respect, their stubborn refusal to see reason. Feel that sensation in your body right now. The rigid set of your jaw. The coiling in your gut. Your mind is a war room, racing through past grievances and future retaliations. You are no longer listening to understand, you are listening for ammunition. Every pause they take is not for thought, but a tactical opening for your next salvo. You are both trapped in a feedback loop of escalating hostility. A death spiral of the ego. You tell yourself this is a battle for the truth. A fight for what is right. But the hidden cost of this war is devastating. The dirty secret of the cage of righteousness is that even if you win, you lose. You might force a bitter concession. You might exhaust them into silence. But you have not persuaded. You have conquered. And in doing so, you have corroded the very foundation of the relationship. You have traded a moment of hollow victory for a lasting fissure of resentment and mistrust. You won the battle over who was right, but you lost the war for connection, for progress, for peace. The truth is, when two fortresses face each other, the only outcome is a prolonged siege or mutual destruction. There is no other path. Unless one side decides to stop fighting, and instead, to build a bridge. The visual shifts. We see Armin Arlert for the first time. He is small, seemingly weak, but his eyes hold a piercing intelligence. We see him in moments of quiet contemplation, studying books, looking at maps. The music shifts, becoming more thoughtful, less oppressive. In the brutal calculus of survival, where humanity is hammered on the anvil of monstrous forces, strength is typically measured in steel and fury. We look to the sublime violence of Levi, the unyielding will of Aren, the strategic gambles of Irwin. But there is another kind of power, a power that is consistently underestimated, and it is embodied in Armin Arlert. His strategy is not one of overwhelming force, but of profound psychological insight. He understands a fundamental law of conflict. You cannot defeat a belief with force. You can only make it stronger. Armin's method is the antithesis of the cage of righteousness. It is a strategy of radical de-escalation, built not on asserting his own truth, but on creating a shared search for a new one. His entire philosophy can be distilled into 3 core principles. Principle 1. Verbally concede the stalemate. The first move is to sheathe your own sword. This is the most difficult and counterintuitive step. The ego screams for you to press the attack. Armin's genius is to recognize that when both sides are fully armed and defended, no ground can be gained. The only logical move is to announce a ceasefire. This isn't surrender. It is a strategic pivot. It signals to the opponent that the rules of engagement are about to change. It breaks the hypnotic rhythm of attack and counterattack. Principle 2. Humanize the opponent. Once the ceasefire is called, Armin's next objective is to dismantle the enemy's fortress from the inside, not with a cannonball, but with empathy. He doesn't challenge their position, he seeks to understand it. He asks questions about their feelings, their history, their identity. He forces them to look inward, to articulate the human reasons behind their hardened stance. In doing so, he reminds them that they are not just a warrior, or a soldier, or an enemy. They are a person. And it is far harder to fight a person than it is to fight a monster. Principle 3. Propose the unifying question. This is the masterstroke. After disarming the situation and re-establishing a human connection, Armin introduces a problem that both sides share. He poses a question that neither he nor his opponent can answer alone. It's a question that reframes them from adversaries on opposite sides of a battlefield to potential collaborators facing a common dilemma. It shifts the entire dynamic from me versus you to us versus the problem. Think of it this way. Two soldiers are fighting to the death in a muddy trench, both convinced that this small patch of earth is the most important thing in the world. This is the cage of righteousness. Armin's strategy is to stop, look up from the mud, and say, the trench is flooding. How do we both get out before we drown? The fight for the patch of earth becomes instantly absurd. The enemy becomes the only possible ally. The music swells with a sense of clarity and purpose. The visuals become a montage of diagrams, blueprints, and historical maps, illustrating strategic thinking. This section is a direct, practical guide. This is not mere theory. It is a replicable technique. A weapon for your own arsenal in the conflicts that define your life. Here is how you apply Armin's method, the 3 steps to building a bridge out of the cage of righteousness. When you find yourself in that escalating spiral, when the air grows thick with resentment and the goal has shifted from resolution to domination, I want you to stop. Take a breath. And execute the following sequence. Step 1. Announce the ceasefire. You must be the one to break the cycle. You do this by verbally acknowledging the futility of the current path. Use clear, non-accusatory language. Do not say, "You're not listening to me." Instead, say, "Okay, hold on. Clearly, we are not getting anywhere right now. We're just talking past each other." Do not say, "This is pointless." Instead, say, "I feel like we're both just digging in deeper. Can we pause for a second?" This act alone is a powerful pattern interrupt. It forces both of you out of the reactive lizard brain and into the observational, logical mind. You are not admitting you are wrong. You are stating the objective fact that the current strategy is failing for both of you. Step 2. Practice tactical empathy. Now, you must disarm them. The only way to get someone to lower their shield is to show them you are not holding a spear. You do this by demonstrating that you are trying to understand their perspective. This is not about agreement. It is about validation. Use this simple formula. It sounds like you feel because. Is that right? For example, it sounds like you feel incredibly frustrated because you believe I'm not appreciating the work you put in. Is that what's going on? Or, it seems like you're angry because you feel like I've broken my promise. Did I get that right? The last 3 words, "is that right?" are critical. They are an invitation. You are handing them control, giving them the floor to correct you, to clarify, to be heard. The moment someone feels heard, their need to shout diminishes. You are lowering their emotional state from hostile to cooperative by proving you are not a threat, but a listener. Step 3. Ask the bridge question. Once the emotional temperature has dropped, you can pivot to collaborative problem solving. You must frame a question that redefines the goal from individual victory to a shared, positive outcome. This question must start with words like, "How can we?" or "What would it take for?" Instead of arguing about who should do the dishes, you ask, "How can we create a system for the chores that feels fair to both of us?" Instead of fighting about a political opinion, you ask, "What is the shared goal we both have here, even if we disagree on the method? What are we both trying to achieve?" Instead of litigating a past mistake, You ask, how can we move forward from this in a way that rebuilds trust? What do we need to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? This question is a bridge. It is an invitation to leave your fortified trench and meet in a neutral, constructive space. You are no longer fighting over the past, you are building a future. Announce the ceasefire. Practice tactical empathy. Ask the bridge question. This is the sequence. It is simple, but it is not easy. It requires you to subordinate your ego to the greater strategic objective, not winning the argument, but resolving the conflict. We see the dramatic scene atop Wall Rose. Bertolt, in his human form, cornered and desperate. Reiner is injured. The scouts are closing in. Armin, unarmed and vulnerable, steps forward. The score is tense and mournful. The proof of this strategy is etched into the blood-soaked history of the walls. Consider the confrontation between Armin and Bertolt atop Wall Rose. The scouts have the upper hand. Bertolt, the colossal titan, is cornered. The standard military doctrine would be to press the advantage, to threaten, to intimidate, to force a surrender through overwhelming pressure. This is the logic of the cage of righteousness. But Armin does not do this. He sees the flaw in that logic. A cornered animal is the most dangerous. A man with nothing to lose is capable of anything. Pressing the attack will only lead to mutual destruction. So he begins. First, he announces the ceasefire, not with words, but with his posture. He approaches slowly, his hands open. He is not a threat. He breaks the pattern of violence. Second, he practices tactical empathy. He doesn't talk about his own goals or the scouts' demands. He talks about them. He brings up Annie. He asks about their mission. He demonstrates that he has been thinking about their perspective, their suffering. He forces Bertolt out of his role as the colossal titan, and back into his identity as a human being, a friend, a boy sent on a mission he may not fully understand. Watch Bertolt's face. He is confused. He expected threats, violence, hatred. He did not expect to be understood. He says, Who would want to kill people? Do you think I like doing this? This is the crack in the fortress. Armin has found the human being inside the weapon of mass destruction. Finally, Armin asks the bridge question, albeit in a more desperate, inverted form. He sees that Bertolt is too far gone for collaboration, so he uses the principle to expose the futility of Bertolt's position. He highlights their shared predicament, being pawns in a larger game, and essentially asks, is this position you hold truly helping you? He uses empathy not to build a bridge to safety, but to illuminate the fact that Bertolt's bridge is already on fire. The result is a complete psychological breakdown, neutralizing the single greatest threat on the battlefield without firing a single shot. This is not a fantasy. This principle is the bedrock of real-world high-stakes negotiation. The FBI's hostage negotiation unit operates on this exact framework. Their primary tool is not the sniper rifle, it is what they call active listening. They never say, "You're wrong." They say, "Help me understand." They build rapport, validate emotions, and then slowly pivot the subject from their fortified position towards a collaborative solution, one where everyone gets to walk away. Chris Voss, a former lead FBI negotiator, calls this tactical empathy. He used it to save lives. He would build a bridge of understanding into the mind of a terrorist or a bank robber, not because he agreed with them, but because it was the only strategic path to a successful outcome. Look at the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. The world stood on the precipice of nuclear annihilation. The American and Soviet high commands were trapped in the ultimate cage of righteousness. Any sign of weakness, any concession, would be a fatal blow to national pride and global standing. The logic of escalation was pushing both sides toward the abyss. The crisis was averted because a few key individuals, on both sides, began asking the bridge question. How can we give the other side a way to back down without looking weak? The solution? A secret agreement to remove American missiles from Turkey in exchange for the removal of Soviet missiles from Cuba, was a masterpiece of de-escalation. It wasn't about one side winning, it was about both sides finding a way to not lose. It was about creating a shared victory against the true enemy, mutual assured destruction. Armin's method is not about being soft. It is about being smart. It is the recognition that in any meaningful conflict, the true enemy is not the person standing opposite you. The true enemy is the stalemate itself. It is the escalating cycle of pride and aggression. It is the cage of righteousness that imprisons you both. To win is not to destroy your opponent. A soldier looking out at an uncertain future. The visual mood is one of sober reflection, not triumphant victory. The cage of righteousness feels like a fortress. It feels safe. It feels powerful. But its walls block out the one thing you need to solve any complex problem: a different perspective. The power of a simple question is that it is a doorway in that wall. It is an admission that you do not have all the answers. It is an invitation for another person to help you find them. This requires a different kind of strength. Not the strength to break down a door, but the strength to open one. Not the strength to win a fight, but the courage to declare a peace, even for a moment, to find a better way forward. This is the paradox of power. In the moments where you feel most compelled to assert your strength, the most strategic move is often to display your humanity. To admit the stalemate. To understand your enemy. And to ask the one question that can turn a battlefield into common ground. The screen fades to black. Soft, ambient music continues. Host. Now, I want you to think about a conflict in your own life. A recurring argument, a professional stalemate, a personal division. Let me know in the comments. What is one bridge question you could ask in that situation that would shift the dynamic from me versus you to us versus the problem? Sharing our strategies is how we all learn to see beyond our own walls. And if you seek to understand the brutal architecture of command and the philosophies that govern our struggles, join the ranks and subscribe to Beyond the Walls. We have deconstructed Armin's strategy for peace. Now, it is time to analyze the opposite end of the spectrum. To understand why some leaders believe the only path forward is through fire and sacrifice, click here to watch our breakdown of Erwin Smith's final charge. Psychology of the ultimate gamble. Stay vigilant.